Average for the time of year, but otherwise it's still a little on the chilly side. On into Wednesday's forecast though, we've got these southwesterly winds spreading that milder air in off the Atlantic, but it's going to be quite an unsettled day. The best of the weather probably in the morning across eastern areas with some sunshine. In the west we start to see thundery downpours work in. Some of those are going to be quite lively with the winds strengthening, but look at the temperatures. We're looking at highs of 15 or 16 degrees Celsius, but after a dry day, I don't know, it feels disappointing with the return to rain, Fiona.
Chris, thanks very much. Thank you. And from the 6 team, it's goodbye. The news continues here on BBC One. Now it's time to join our colleagues across the nations and regions for the news where you are. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Fiona. Hello, you're watching Wales Today. I'm Nick Servini. A new future for Welsh rugby after the historic decision to change the way it's run. The search is on for more women at the top of the game.
People have to take us for our word, and we hope that people want to be involved in the rebirth, if I can use that word, of the Welsh Rugby Union.
So, after months of divisions and accusations of sexism, can Welsh rugby move on? Also tonight, criticism of the Welsh Government after failing to spend more than £150 million in the pandemic. The cash then had to be handed back to Westminster. It was meant to be her dream kitchen, but after builders abandoned her extension, Catherine says she's been overwhelmed with support from neighbours.
I've had so many offers of people offering to dry the clothes, do the dishes, anything. And those little gestures make a huge difference.
Hello, in tonight's sport. After that...
Good evening. After months of soul-searching and deep divisions, there is, for once, agreement throughout Welsh rugby on the future. It follows yesterday's meeting in which hundreds of clubs voted overwhelmingly to give up much of their power and support changes that will lead to more women and independent figures on the WRU board. The search is now underway for a new female appointments at the very top of the game here. Today, the Chief Executive, Nigel Walker, called it the rebirth of the organisation. It follows accusations of sexism and misogyny, as well as turmoil with players threatening to go on strike over new contracts. With the latest, here's Stephen Fairclough.
A focus on the future of Welsh rugby at this Erith Sevens competition in Cardiff. Future talent in the young girls and boys on the pitch, but also a chance for those at the top of the game to digest yesterday's landmark vote on the WRU's future. Welsh clubs overwhelmingly backed plans to change the makeup of the Welsh Rugby Union board, with more independent members and more women.
First thing is to have a board which is representative of the society that we live in, that is open and inclusive, and where boys and girls have an equal opportunity to play the game they love.
How do you get women to be interested in taking these jobs at this time?
Well, as an organisation, we've obviously made mistakes. We've owned up to making those mistakes. There's an independent review going on as we speak. But we've made a lot of progress behind the scenes in terms of making ourselves a more inclusive and open organisation. There have been a lot of statements about it. People have to take us for our word, and we hope that people want to be involved in the rebirth, if I can use that word, of the Welsh Rugby Union and the values that we stand for.
The mainly male faces from clubs across Wales at yesterday's meeting voted overwhelmingly for change, with more than 97% in favour. The motion was put forward after allegations surfaced of sexism and misogyny within the governing body. What followed was weeks of turmoil, including the resignation of the then Chief Executive, Steve Phillips. Cardiff director Hayley Parsons wrote to the WRU on behalf of the regions, calling for changes. Today, in a statement, she said she was quite emotional when she heard yesterday's result, adding that this is a historic moment in the history of the WRU and that she's looking forward to seeing the changes in action. Others, too, expressed their delight at the vote.
This is a positive first step, and we have to remember that it is a first step, and well done to all of the clubs that did vote in favour of these changes, which are long, long overdue.
The changes mean at least one of the WRU chair or chief executive must be a woman. Looking for a new independent chair is the first job. The current chair says he hopes the reforms will make changes visible at all levels of rugby in Wales, from elite to community level.
The expectations are far different than they used to be. We are to be that modern, vibrant, growing organisation, that we need to reflect that on our board structure. And yesterday was a first step in ensuring that happens, and to give that reassurance to the public at large that this is the game that you want to be part of, that this is an organisation that you want to be part of.
For those at the start of their careers in rugby, the signals of a new direction are positive.
Just joy, like, it's so nice to have women representing us, and yeah, it feels good that I'm a part of that.
The Welsh Rugby Union have set a deadline of the end of the year for the changes agreed yesterday to be fully implemented. But they hope it'll be sooner than that, and they hope that it will all lead to a sea change in the culture of rugby throughout Wales. Stephen Fairclough, BBC Wales Today, Cardiff.
Police are treating the sudden death of a 22-year-old man in Llanelli during the early hours of Saturday morning as suspicious. Liam Morgan Whittle's family say they're devastated by the loss of their son. A 38-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the incident and bailed pending further inquiries. An inquest has heard how a woman from Anglesey who died after falling down the stairs had been described by paramedics as drunk. But a medical expert told the inquest that 61-year-old Janet Jones from Moelfre had a rare heart and lung condition, which should have been prioritised. The coroner found there were delays in assessing Mrs Jones, but that a number of changes had been introduced since her death in 2018. A disciplinary panel has heard that a police officer pursued a sexual relationship with a vulnerable victim of crime. John Kellam resigned as a PC from North Wales Police earlier this month. The panel decided there had been gross misconduct and that if he was still serving, he would have been sacked. He will also be placed on the police barred list. A new law will help all pupils in Wales become confident Welsh speakers by 2050. That's the pledge from Labour ministers and Plaid Cymru, who have jointly published proposals for a Welsh medium education bill. They say it paves the way for an increase in the number of Welsh medium schools, as well as more use of the language in English medium schools. The Conservatives have questioned whether there are enough staff to deliver the plans.
I don't think it's right to have compulsory Welsh medium education. The white paper doesn't contemplate that and the bill won't provide for that. What this provides for is whatever the medium of school, that you will have that better opportunity than you currently have to be a confident Welsh speaker. And it will also mean that all schools increasingly provide more Welsh language teaching. Actually, it's part of our new curriculum in any case. But what this bill does is put the tools in place to enable that to be a reality on the ground.
Low-income households will receive the first instalment of the next set of cost of living payments between the 25th of April and the 17th of May. Claimants, including people on universal credit, pension credit and tax credits, will eventually receive £900. The first of three payments, starting next month, is worth £301. You can find out more on this story by going to the cost of living page on the BBC News website. There are questions tonight about how taxpayers' money has been managed in Wales. It comes from a report which says essential public services lost more than £150 million during the pandemic. Because the Welsh Government didn't spend the money, it went back to the UK Treasury. Our political correspondent Daniel Davis is with me now. So, Dan, what happened here?
Well, Nick, cast your mind back to 2020 and governments across the UK were spending vast sums buying PPE, setting up testing systems, just keeping the economy afloat. And that meant that the Welsh Government's budget grew by billions extra. And at the end of that financial year, it had money left over. Now, that isn't unusual. What they normally do is hang on to some of that cash, carry it on to the next financial year or beyond. But there are limits on how much they can keep. The Treasury sets strict rules on this. And in this instance, the Welsh Government bust through those limits. So £155 million effectively went back to the UK government's Treasury. Now, today, a report from the Public Accounts Committee in the Senedd says that that is disappointing. They say this is a significant amount of money, even if it is coming from a budget of £21 billion. And that the Welsh Government needs to take steps to avoid this happening in future, because this is money, they say, that could have gone to essential public services. The Welsh Government did ask to keep this money. They went back and forth with the Treasury for months, but eventually, the money left Wales. And your opinion on that, as ever in politics, I'm afraid, is going to depend on people's point of view. These are Treasury rules. People may think they're unfair. They are very strict. And so some are saying, well, if they are strict, the Welsh Government could have seen this coming. That's what the Tories are saying, that the Welsh Government could have used this money to help people. Plaid Cymru also saying that it's inexplicable, in their words, that the Welsh Government allowed this to happen.
And what's the Welsh Government saying about this, considering that they always complain about being underfunded from Westminster?
Yeah, I mean, whether you think that the government failed to spend money here, the Welsh Government failed, or whether the Treasury just clawed this money back. Either way, money going back, returning to London is a potent allegation. As I say, it's not unusual for money to be left over, but the Welsh Government's never just going to give that away. There's a high bar that they have to cross to get value for money. They say they did a good job. They spent a bigger chunk of their money than UK government departments, and they avoided what had happened in England, scandals over the government paying hugely over the odds for PPE. The Treasury, for their part, say that these are the rules, they've applied them in the usual way. But there's other stuff in this report for the Welsh Government to think about as well. There are allegations, for example, of poor record keeping, all of which arose from accountants, auditors having issues with the Welsh Government's own accounts. So, as I say, a lot for them to learn from this report.
OK, Dan, thanks for explaining all of that. I could never have walked away, the words of a man who's fought for almost 10 years for the answers he needed about failings in his elderly mother's care at a mental health unit in North Wales. Now, David Graves has accepted a settlement and an apology from Betsy Cadwaladr University Health Board for both the care his mum received and what it describes as the distress he's experienced while seeking those answers about what happened and why. David Evans reports.
This is Jean Graves, a sociable lady who loved music, company and, above all, her family. In 2013, the 78-year-old spent 9 weeks at Ysbyty Gwyned's Hergest unit, where her son says she was left severely malnourished and fell numerous times. When David Graves went to complain to Betsy Cadwaladr University Health Board, he started a struggle that would last years.
It really was going beyond the pale in what was happening in terms of black was white. This didn't happen. Yes, it did. Here's the record.
After an investigation by the Office of the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales, the Health Board have now issued a full apology to Mr Graves. The failings include Mrs Graves's records being incomplete or amended without proper evidence, and the fact that she was placed on a ward with younger people with psychiatric illnesses, which was not best practice.
But this letter also includes an apology from the Health Board for the way it handled Mr Graves' concerns for what happened here. The issues include a failure to make sure the concerns were properly investigated in a way that was agreed to ensure his confidence, the blocking of his emails, and inappropriate and upsetting comments made about him by senior officers and staff involved in handling the case.
David Graves has received a 5-figure financial settlement from the Health Board.
What price do you put on the last 10 years of your life? I'm so grateful for what they've done. At the same time, 10 years of my life have passed when that should have been sent to me 10 years ago.
In the same month as Jean Graves went to the Hergest unit, staff there were writing to bosses complaining about the conditions. An investigation found the unit was in serious trouble with worrying standards of care. But that report wasn't published in full until the Health Board was forced to do so 8 years later. All that time, David Graves was still trying to get answers.
I think that there was a mindset that such complaints are a game to be won or lost. They are not. They're a learning opportunity, and people did not want to learn from what had happened.
In a statement to us, the executive lead for mental health at Betsy Cadwaladr says she offers again sincere apologies to Mr Graves. I appreciate this has not been easy, says Teresa Owen, before adding that the focus now is on using Mr Graves' experience to continue to learn and improve the services.
Jean Graves died in 2016. Her son still has many unanswered questions, but says he can now start thinking about closure.
Still to come before 7.
And spring has been in the air today, but the fine weather is not set to last, with more cloud, wind and rain on the way. I'll have the forecast for the rest of this week.
A nurse says she's been humbled by the kindness of strangers who've come together to help after building work at her home in Tonorevai left her with an extension she feared might collapse. When single mum Catherine Lewis appeared on the BBC Wales consumer programme X-Ray, the community rallied to help make her house a home once again. Lucy Owen has the story.
It should have been a dream build. Instead, Catherine Lewis's home was left in this desperate state.
We have a completely open, exposed house. There are big holes, and any slight dink or clink you think, oh, is that another brick that's fallen?
X-Ray took chartered surveyor Tim Davis to inspect the work. He said the extension could come down in a catastrophic collapse at any time.
It shouldn't happen to you, and it shouldn't happen to anybody else. That's why trading standards need to act on it soon, OK?
Catherine had paid N&K Kitchens, run by brothers Nicky and Kyle Middleton, £61,000. But they abandoned the job, claiming unforeseen building issues had caused significant extra work, saying Catherine owed them money for outstanding invoices and blaming structural issues on work done by a previous builder. After Catherine's story was featured on X-Ray, she was inundated with offers of help. A local building team swooped in to make the house safe.
Can't express the relief. As soon as they said it's not going to fall down, I felt like tons of weight was off my shoulders.
And a kitchen firm stepped in to help too.
We're going to put a temporary sink in, hopefully this week now, so Kath hasn't got to go upstairs for water. And then when the build work is finished, we're going to supply a kitchen at cost for her and hopefully get it fitted for free.
There's even a GoFundMe page set up by a neighbour that's raised more than £5,000.
So we are hopeful with a bit more money, a few more donations, that we'll be able to get Kath to, to a place where her and her children can safely live in the property.
It took me a second to realise that actually this was for me and my family. I am humbled by the kindness that I've had from strangers, and I cried.
Thanks to all the generosity from her community, Catherine no longer feels alone as she tries to rebuild her home.
And you can see more on this story in the last ever episode of X-Ray on BBC One Wales at 8 p.m. and on iPlayer. The First Minister has congratulated the new leader of the Scottish National Party. Writing on Twitter, Mark Drakeford wished Humza Yousaf luck in the role after the party's health secretary was announced as the successor to the former leader Nicola Sturgeon earlier today. Mr Drakeford added that he was looking forward to working with Mr Yousaf in the future on shared issues. Volunteers from Porthcawl RNLI have been awarded for their bravery and courage after rescuing a surfer in challenging conditions. Their lifeboat had to contend with underwater rocks, thick fog and a 3-metre groundswell during the rescue at Monknash in the Vale of Glamorgan in January 2020. An RNLI area manager said the team had undoubtedly saved the surfer's life. A rescue helicopter had been unable to respond due to the fog. Wales's footballers are aiming to reach another European Championship, and so far qualification has started well. And Thomas is here.
And Nick, they've got this man to thank. In his first game for Wales, a first goal. Nathan Broadhead rescued a point in Croatia on his debut. The captain was full of praise for him today. Aaron Ramsey also says a capacity crowd at the Cardiff City Stadium can help his side secure a win over Latvia tomorrow night.
The final coin in a collection celebrating 25 years since the first publication of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone has been launched by the Royal Mint in Llantrisant. The 50p coin features Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The first 2 coins of the collection feature the portrait of the Queen, and the final 2 portray King Charles. Right, our very own weather wizard is with us now. Derek is here. Lovely evening, but it's not set to last.
That's right, Nick. I wish I could magic up a few days of fine and sunny weather, but unfortunately not. there is more wind and rain on the way. But today has been gorgeous, hasn't it? Spring has been in the air. A beautiful day for a walk in Rhaeadr along the banks of the River Wye. This picture taken by Alistair Wiley. Also quite nice, gorgeous in fact, on Gower with a few cumulus clouds over Rhosylli Bay. But trouble is brewing behind me. This swirl of cloud is heading our way, and that's going to bring a change in our weather. But not this evening, staying dry with increasing amounts of cloud. And then overnight, the breeze will pick up, and here comes the rain arriving during the early hours. No frost anywhere tonight, temperatures staying well above freezing. Into tomorrow then, we've got weather fronts drifting eastwards across the UK, bringing rain with them. So not as nice as today. Cloudy with outbreaks of rain and drizzle, the cloud covering the hills and mountains. Later in the afternoon, it should turn drier, brighter in places to the north and east of high ground. A breezier day tomorrow, windy on western coasts and hills, and temperatures higher than today, reaching 10 to 13 Celsius. Into Wednesday, a dry start for many of us, but it's not set to last. Here comes the next batch of rain, and some of that will be on the heavy side. Breezy too, and milder temperatures reaching 15 Celsius in a few places on Wednesday. Fronts over the Atlantic will move north and eastwards during the course of Wednesday. They will clear, but here comes more trouble. This developing area of low pressure will affect us on Thursday night into Friday. So for Thursday, it's going to be a breezy, windy day with a mixture of bright intervals and showers. Some of the showers will be on the heavy side. Then on Thursday night into Friday, that low pressure will bring a spell of wet and windy weather, followed by showers. Rainfall totals then will be totting up as we go through this week. By the end of Friday, some high ground in Neath Port Talbot could see around 75 millimetres of rain. That's 3 inches. This month certainly wetter than average, with an unsettled start to April. Nick.
OK, Derek, thank you very much. Before I go, a reminder of our main headline tonight. The boss of the Welsh Rugby Union says he hopes people will buy into what he describes as the rebirth of the WRU after clubs voted in favour of major reform at a special meeting. The changes will see more independent members and more women on the WRU board. It comes after allegations of sexism and misogyny within the governing body.
There have been a lot of statements about it. People have to take us for our word, and we hope that people want to be involved in the rebirth, if I can use that word, of the Welsh Rugby Union and the values that we stand for.
And that is Wales Today. I'll be back after the 10 o'clock news. Hope to see you then. Have a good evening.
I took my children to see